Welcome to Belfort Podcast. First of all, I want to thank you guys for tuning in all these days together, and I cannot thank you enough. And I want to make sure you subscribe to YouTube channels in all platforms of podcast platforms. But one thing I want you to understand is the mission of this podcast is to empower you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So every guest that come here comes with that purpose to empower you, their story related to your story. So the guest of today, that guy can dunk, that guy can move, that guy can shoot some balls and some hoops, but that guy can stand. He can stand for something that in the midst of everybody, he was the only one standing. And I hope you can learn the lessons of today's podcast to stand. I don't know what you're not standing for, but I promise you this podcast is going to empower you tremendously. So Jonathan Isaac, the legend, 25-year-old, and he has a soul of the 45-year-old. So let's have some fun. Let's dig in. Let's go. What's up, everyone? We're here at the Belfort Podcast, and today I have a pleasure. We share the stage together in an event. The only Jonathan Isaac. Jonathan, we're here in Orlando area. So tell me a little bit about your choice of this city and extension of your contract.
Well, I didn't really choose it because I was drafted here. So as long as they like me, as long
but
as
you
I'm
choose to
be
extend.
Here. Yes, they did. Well, they chose to extend. I chose to accept. So you're right. But I like Orlando. I'm glad that you're here. You get to experience it more, and I'm excited to be on your podcast.
Yeah, one thing, Jonathan, that really stand me when we met, it's your ability to express what you think with respect, with love and care, and you stand. And your book, Why I Stand, and tell me a little about that, because for me, standing is such an important thing because I call it identity. We having a crisis of identity. People don't stand for things, they fall for some things, and that name is so powerful. My daughter, an amazing volleyball player. I'm not gonna say her position because we're just laughing, but she's a defender, and I mean she read every night, and she's been very helpful for her, and that's what stand her. Your book say, Dad, I love that he stand for things. Can you share us a little bit about why you choose the name,
the
and
title?
The title, and what you stand for.
Yeah, I mean, we honestly chose the title kind of early on. My pastor was a big, input on what the name of the book should be, and just writing the book in general. You got to meet him as well. But, he was like, it should be called Why I Stand, because this is what it's about. I'm taking people through my journey of childhood and what happened to me to help me to be able to stand. And so, not to get too much into it, but, I talked about it on the stage as well. I struggle with anxiety like the majority of my life, and it's still something that I've learned to battle with to this day. And so the crux of the book was that in this pivotal moment in time with all the Black Lives Matter, with everything that was going on, you have this kid who at one point in time struggled heavily with anxiety and was able to find his identity in something. And my identity was found in Christ. And that had led me to find the strength, to find the peace, to find the courage to stand up in this moment and share my perspective on what it is that I believed. I've always kind of had this like spirit of just kind of like, peaceful to a degree. And so all of that, but being able to stand up and take authority and take initiative all came from me finding out who I was in Christ and what Christ thought about me, the way that he saw me as not a lamb, but a lion. And so I started to kind of try my best to take on that posture. And in that moment, I just said, I'm going to stand. I'm going to, everyone was kneeling, to a degree for what they believed in. And I made a decision to stand up for what I believed in.
And one thing, Jonathan, and people, what really struck me, like, the world is very political. People are very political. And what I love about Christ never stand for the things that the politicians or whatever. He stands for humanity. And I think your stands, when hearing you out and trying to be there. I'm just, when you're talking, I'm just trying to be there. I'm trying to be you. When all these top players and you're young and you know what I mean? And basically people get stroked by this idol, you know, and you know, like being a Christian, your idol, you serve one person. You and I always remember, if I can stand in the presence of Christ, I can stand in the presence of anyone and be me. So, and I think that's what I want to dive in, because kids are struggling with identity. They don't stand for things. And I can tell, like, just sharing something with you, this happened yesterday. My daughter said, I want to go to a concert. My daughter come to my wife and I say, oh, fine. Show me what concert you want to go. And she says, okay, let's hear some music. Let's see some videos. I'm not kidding. Start seeing the clip and they have the kids pointing a gun, shooting a gun. And my wife said, so you want to go to this is the thing you support. And my daughter said, no, I don't like that. I said, so why are you going to? No, my friend invited me. I said, so you stand for your things. You tell her friend, I'm not going because of this, and you should not go. So we're trying to teach our kids to stand for your beliefs or whatever you support, but you cannot support it. So tell me how difficult the moment was for you on that moment that you stand.
It was extremely difficult. And the biggest reason why it was difficult was how it would look in the eyes of other people. And so to your daughter's, you know, that situation, it wasn't so much about, you know, her values. It was the fact that she was invited by someone else, and how that person would perceive her saying no, how that person would perceive her saying you shouldn't go either. There is a peer pressure and a fear that comes with not fitting in. And so you have this moment where everybody in the world is assimilating to one thing, one action. We're all for this cause. We're all for this organization. We're all for this movement. And, you know, you talked about Jesus being for humanity. For me, it was like, it was about the human aspect. It wasn't about politics. It wasn't about left. It wasn't about right. It was about, I believe that there's a solution that can truly heal our country, heal our divide between white and black and indifferent, but it's going to come through Christ. It's going to come through Amen. Us all humbling ourselves and saying, you know what? I've fallen short too. I've sinned too. I've done wrong against my brother and my sister. Who am I to judge, you know, someone else or an entire race, you know, in that instance. But it was extremely hard because you talked about it. I'm a young athlete. You know, I'm on this team where I'm the only one who's making this decision. Forget about the league. You know, in my own locker room, I'm the only player. And I talked about it in the book about, you know, me having conversations with my teammates before and after the stand that got heated, that got, you know, confrontational, but I tried my best to stick to my guns. And a big part of it was the people that I have around me. And so when you talk about identity, and it's hard to do anything on that level by yourself. And so the fact that your daughter has you and has her mother to encourage her to stand up for what she believes in makes all the difference in the world. But so I remember the night before I stood, I was on the phone with my pastor, and I'm like, I don't think you understand how crazy this is going to be. Like, I'm gonna be a name called, you know, I'm gonna be a coon. There's something like, you know, black people who, you know, either stand for the other side. I'm gonna be an Uncle Tom. I'm gonna be a sellout because I'm not standing up for, I'm not kneeling for the black movement. I'm gonna be all these things. I'm probably gonna be ostracized by my teammates, maybe ostracized by the league. I hadn't signed my contract extension yet, so I could get, you know, blackballed and not make any more money, right? Because it was so big, like entire organizations were getting behind it. The league put Black Lives Matter on the court. NBA, They put Black Lives Matter on the jerseys. The, you know, corporations were coming out and making commercials specifically around this thing. So it wasn't some little thing. But my pastor told me one thing that night on the phone. He said, you cannot stand for God and God not stand for you.
So true.
And so that was the, like, mic drop. Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go through it.
I love it.
And truthfully, you know, I got hurt afterwards. I got hurt in the next game. The second game that I stood, I tore my ACL and I had a severe knee injury. And so, but I've seen God stand for me throughout the time from there. I'm about to be a dad in the next week.
Come on, man. Next week.
I got a baby girl on the way in the next 10 days. I was able to sign my contract extension. I was able to write a best-selling book about why I stood that's encouraging people all around the world. I'm working on a few things, you know, something I told you about, working on building a company and a brand that's a value-based sports and apparel company so people can they
can associate with something that
they believe in. You know what I'm saying?
This is something I want to go touch and I think, and as if you're watching, and just please put all your political hats outside. So we here, literally, we open our heart, and I appreciate you opening your heart, and your time is so valuable. People don't understand, so value your time, especially right now. But that's something that I associate everything I drink, what I eat, things that you see. You gotta understand, if everyone together stop shopping Amazon today, tomorrow they go out of business. Do you know that? If everybody today, one day, stop purchasing in Amazon going out of business tomorrow. The power is always on a pack.
Mm-hmm.
The power of a team is always on the pack. It's never an individual. Right. It's in the pack. And as a society, I think we become so divided because I'm this, you that. I'm this, I like that. You have to support me. And when you stand for Christ, you're not trying to swallow people to stand for Christ. Christian doesn't judge no one by their faith. Because we can only do to others what we do for ourselves. So I think the problem is the lack of love identity, like who you are. So on that time, I just can't imagine, and I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to go, but I mean, it's make me so proud. Like I can literally, my daughter share with me the story, but she say, I can't believe he did that. And he starts dropping names. And I said, but if he can stand for Jesus, he'll not stand for no one. If he doesn't stand for him. And I think what it shows, show your value, your character, but also encouragement for people to stand for something, for your marriage. So the criticism was big. And you think that affect your performance in a way, like when you start thinking about that, or no?
Of course. No, 1,000%. Leading into that next game, my phone did not stop ringing after I stood. Wow. Good and bad, right? So it was the people saying, a lot of people, I appreciate you, and then the people saying you're all these different things. And so it was something that inside of myself, even coming back from the background that I had, struggled with anxiety, struggled with fear, self-insecurity, I wasn't able to shake it as well as I had done, leading up to. And so it definitely got to me. And but I'm just glad, that I had the people around me. And now looking back, we don't always know what God is up to. And we don't know why God allows what he allows. But now, as time has passed, and like we talked about, I'm working on what I'm working on, I see why things had to happen the way that they did. And now I'm able to identify with people who have gone through injury. I'm able to walk with people who have struggled in certain ways to question them. God, why would you let this happen? If somebody asks me that question, now I can have an answer for it because I've been through it, right? If you've never been through anything, you can't help anybody get through anything. Okay. And so part of why God allows us to go through certain things is so we can identify with our brothers and sisters who are going through certain things. And so now that I look back, I'm like, man, I see the value in struggle and still trying your best to hold on to faith and hold on to God. And to your point about, real quick, about the whole Amazon thing, there's a few different pieces to it. I believe that the world is going in a place where everything that you buy will be synonymous with what you believe.
Come on, somebody.
And that's not.
Come on, somebody.
That's not us.
This is so. I want you to go back again. Everything that you purchase, because your value. And I told everyone, wherever you put your money, you put your heart, you put your soul.
That's a verse.
So whatever you put your money, I say, where is your heart?
Mm-hmm.
Is your treasure. So this is powerful because people need to understand whatever they see, shop, hear, music, video, film. I'm so into that. We have to support the good. You know what I'm saying? I was walking in the mall, and we see this store called Balenciaga, whatever, Balenciaga, and I was walking by, and I was rebuking because what they did for these little kids was so disgusting. But no one was shopping on that store. I didn't see one person shopping on that store. Why? Because they mass. Look, they just happened something with the alcoholic name. Just they did something. They lost over $5 billion.
Oh, right.
So we are showing the value of society in a way because your money, it is deciding what your values are. And I think what you said is so key.
Yeah, it used to be that it didn't matter what the people believe, like the places that you shopped or the things that we consume. It used to be like, it didn't matter what those people believed. It was just a product.
Yeah.
But now it's coming to a place where it's like, where you put your money are, lifting up corporations and those people, what they believe matters, because what they believe are either trying to undermine the fabric of society or either trying to harm, like you talked about the thing that, what happened with Balenciaga, that, that craziness about the kids and what they had came out with. It's like, if they never put that out, we wouldn't know, right? Anything that was going on behind the scenes. But because they did, we were able to, people were able to take a step back and say, okay, this isn't something that I want to support. But it used to be that it didn't matter what the people who, own Twitter or own all these things believe, because it was just a good. But now it's like diversifying the marketplace and putting in different ideas. You give people the freedom to buy with their values. And it doesn't matter what people choose to do, but we can have a choice about what we want to support. But if there are no options, if people aren't creating anything, what are people supposed to go to?
You can. And you're talking about injury. And when I was first time, I was the youngest champion in UFC. And
you told me this.
I had an injury in the neck. I had an injury. And the guy said, I remember in the hospital, and the doctor said, you're not going to be able to fight anymore. And I looked at my dad. I said, Dad, what I'm going to do? I dropped school. I came to America at 16 years old. So my life was crazy because I dropped school 16 years old, coming to America with $1,000 after becoming UFC champion. And I mean, back then there has no sport. So and the doctor said, I said, Dad, I'm going to have to build walls. I'm going to have to do construction. In my mind, I was so desperate. I said, I don't see. I didn't know. I was just a kid. And God healed me. And I had 14 surgeries. Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, when you're talking about surgeries, like, it's funny because it brings me so many memories. When that thing happened, when that surgery, I believe was one of your struggle, the biggest struggle you had in your career as a basketball player.
Yeah.
So, and is in the mind, is always say, we always have to, I was talking to a friend of mine, Christianity becomes so weak. We're supposed to be, so strong, but I mean, so weak because if you're not being blessed, God's not for you. If you're being cursed, the devil is is action. So I remember I used to just understanding, I'm very honest, is either hell or heaven. Either it's good or bad. Either it's yes or no. I think that's the life of an athlete. Either you win or you lose. There is no between.
Right.
You only know I win, we lose. And I always say, now I transform my losses into lessons. So I either win or learn. I don't like to be a loser, so I learn. If I'm not learning, I'm losing. So on that moment when you get injury, how was your mindset from creating and understanding the process? How was because now we're done, but I mean, can you navigate us to the process of getting injury? What was going to, because people struggle with that right now.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. And as godly as you want people to think of you, the truth is, like, I'm like, God, what the heck? Like, what did I do? Like, did I do something wrong? Do you not love me? Like, am I not serving you properly? Like, all these things that are religion based. Like, if something bad happens to me, it's because I'm doing something bad.
Yeah.
Like, but that's not how God operates. Yeah. But I definitely had those dark days of nobody talked to me. I'm closing the curtains, lights off. I'm depressed. I'm miserable. But to my point earlier about like having the right people around you, having, my wife that I have today, the church family that I have today, my family, my pastor, people to be strong for you when you can't be strong for yourself, and encourage you about who God is and that God still has a plan and God still has a purpose. All of that stuff was, wow. I needed that, or I would have given up a long time ago for what I've gone through. Relationships relationships that I've forged. And so I was slowly, now it's not something that happened overnight. I was gradually able to say, you know what?
How you wake up, because I'm going to share with you a little bit what goes through my mind and what things that I do. When you wake up, it's funny because sometimes I'm in my house, I'm talking loud in my house. And in my house, I'm just saying, shut up. And my family knows now. I'm just talking to myself.
Talking to yourself. Oh,
and
wow.
I'm cursing demons in my house, but I'm cursing the negative,
Thoughts.
No, I'm good, and I'm saying my family knows, but I think if someone, Alexa, is hearing that,
right,
he's gonna say, this guy is crazy.
Call the police.
Yeah. So how was your waking up? Like, what's the first thought that comes into your mind?
You remember that you got hurt. So it's like you wake up and, like, I would say this coming out of surgery is like you get back home, you fall asleep and you wake up and then you remember, oh shoot, I'm injured right now. I can't play. And that's day after day. And then, just what I was saying, like, it's something that happened gradually where it's like, you're able to wake up, and even though those negative thoughts come, you have something to combat them with. Where when you want to feel bad, when you want to feel depressed, when you want to feel in a rut, you just let those thoughts come and you let them beat you up. You beat yourself up. But when you're ready to fight again, when you've been strengthened and you want to fight, you know how to fight back. You fight back with the word. The devil comes with negative thoughts and says, you're done. You're never going to play again. You say, God got me. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. You're able to come back with something. All things work together for the good. Yeah. But we're not always in the position to fight, to be able or willing, because it's a choice at the end of the day. We're not always willing to fight back. And that comes with the people that we have around us who can fight for us while we can't fight. But sooner or later, truthfully, when your heart is for God and your heart's in the right place, you get tired of it. You get tired of being in a rut. You get tired of being depressed, and you're like, okay, it's time to fight. I can't stay here any longer. And that's what's happened to me with all the injuries. I'll get down, I'll get thing, and then next thing you know, I'm like, okay, it's time to fight.
And one thing comes into my mind, like I remember, it's the thoughts. My thoughts are not real. I always say every thought is virtual. Every thought is virtually either real or not. So they come in a ways of almost like a storytelling, right. Because you tell the story. Right. First time I had an injury in my knee, I had a meniscus injury, and I had a fight scheduled for 2 weeks later. And the guy did my surgery, and I need the money, and my coach need the money, and they forced me to fight. The next day, I could not walk. And the guy said, Victor, you can walk. So they had a guy kicking my knee, a guy kicking my thigh, say, you can fight. So I start running. So the next day, I wake up, they say, okay, let's run. I went to the physical therapy, and they put me to run. They rushed me into this process of recovering. But mentally, I was so, I can't walk. And I was thinking like...
That's what you kept telling yourself.
I can't walk. And I say, no, you got to walk. And it's funny because, of course, we did a fast recovery. I was not supposed to do that, but I did. How stupid I was. If I can go back, I do a lot of things different. But I mean, that's one of the things that it's amazing how the body can do things that you almost don't think is real. Like, example, I remember Kobe saying that when he injured his ankle, he said, what about you cannot walk, but what about if you're in your house and your daughter is in your house in burning and your daughter's upstairs? You're going to tell my hamstring hurts. You're going to go there and get it. Right. So our mind is so powerful, but the storytelling that we talk, and I think that's the biggest issue right now. The self-talk is being so negative. And I have 3 kids in my house. I know what their friends are. And with the social media, the algorithm, the way the propaganda, like you say, the propaganda or whatever they want to push.
Right.
And I think people, they struggle with mental health, anxiety. I had depression. And of course, looking for the doctor, taking the medicine that you need to do, everything is fine. But comes to a point they call the effort. You put so much effort into coming back.
Right.
The coming back, it's something that tastes good too, because when you start playing, you start getting that move.
Well, you get to learn about yourself too. It's like you don't know how strong you really are until you've been knocked down and are able to get back up. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't know. I always say, my pastor says it too, like the true test of love. Love is only tested when there's failure. Right? Like when somebody wrongs you, that's the only time your love is tested, because your love isn't tested when everything is good. Your love is tested when everything is bad. And so who you are in your core, are you a fighter? Are you somebody who just gives up? That's tested only in the battle. You know what I'm saying? And to the self-talk thing, what I've also learned over time is like, not every thought is yours. Like there is an enemy. And so just like there's a God who's cheering us on, who wants us to make it, there's a devil who doesn't want us to. And so he's operating in our minds and trying to give us thoughts, and we can either accept them or reject them or replace them with something else. So a lot of times people think, oh, my mind is so terrible, my mind is so negative, but they don't understand there's an adversary that's speaking. He's trying to get into your head. He's trying to implant things. And the more that you can stay in the word, the more that you can find verses that combat it, is the more you'll be able to fight.
And talking about that, I always go back to the basketball. Let's go back a little bit of the basketball, because it's so fun when you're watching basketball. You guys are fighting to is action. It's like the NBA is like UFC, but I mean, of course, they don't. It's a bunch of guys, tall, strong, all different size and speed. But when that ball, someone like that ball goes to you, hey, with that ball, we're depending on you. Mm-hmm. We're gonna throw you the ball, and so you're talking about the mindset, because how you deal with that pressure. Like I like to learn, because it's so much pressure under, say, the whole people look at you, say, oh, the ball goes to you. How you deal with that pressure when they call you, the whole team depend on your shot.
Yeah, I think, well, a lot of times it's like if you find who you are in basketball, it's really hard to not be destroyed in the good or bad. And so it's like when you're called on in that moment to make a play, to do something, if your identity is basketball, you're gonna put all that pressure on yourself in terms of, if I make this happen, I'm great, and if I don't make this happen, I'm terrible. And so the problem with finding your identity in things is that things can fail, and ultimately we're faulty. So you're either gonna make the play or you're gonna miss the play. But what I've tried my best to do is to try to not find my identity in basketball and work on that. So when I am in those moments, I'm like, it's a make or miss shot. It's a make or miss league. I try my best. I failed. I can live with that. I tried my best. I succeeded. It's not all me. You know what I'm saying? So it's like the more that I can remove my worth and remove my identity from this moment, then the freer I am to make mistakes, the freer I am to try, the freer I am to just go out there and do it. But if I put all my worth on this moment, with break or lose, I put way more pressure on myself than the moment
the chance
needs.
For you to make it is going to be zero. And I remember when I used to fight, I say, if I lose, my wife gonna hate me. And I never told her that.
Right.
Maybe she's not gonna like me, and my kid's not gonna like me. And I used to think, I remember when
that's real.
My son was playing this football game, and they had to replace him. And he left the game, we lost, and he came walk with me, and I said, give a hug, and he say, hey, son, don't worry. He looked and say, Dad, do you still love me? My God, man, that hurts me, man. I say, what are you talking about?
Right.
Yeah. Do you still love me like you loved me before? Because I suck. And I say, son, I suck so many times. I cannot even name the times that I suck.
Right.
But I say, you know what? Let's train. Tomorrow we wake up 5 a.m. We're going to train. So it was a lesson for me, but I was almost crying, and he was hugging me. My wife said, what are you guys are talking? I said, we are just having that moment. Yeah. So me and my son, so many times we cry together. So my wife went to take a shower. We are watching a movie. She left the shower. We are crying on the bed together. Hug. And they said, why you guys are crying? What's happened? And we said, I'm going to grow up. I don't want to grow up. So he was talking about growing up.
Right.
Like, he doesn't want to get big. He doesn't want, and I mean, it's funny. I say, you're going to enjoy. And now you're going to have a baby. Can you tell us about that? Just like this experience right now.
Yeah, it's so much. Like it's so exciting. My wife is like, she's more like nervous and a little bit terrified of the whole process, but I'm just like, it's going to be a girl.
Wow.
And all that I've been thinking in my mind is like, I just can't wait to meet her. I can't wait to see what that moment is like.
You guys have a name already?
Naomi. When I first get to, lay my eyes on her. And even what you're talking about, like that relationship, that's what I want the most. I want like that.
What a story that was.
Yeah, right. Facts.
Oh my God.
I can't wait to cultivate and develop that relationship of like being able to be vulnerable, because that's something that I never had, growing up. To really be expressive about what you feel and who you are.
Because you didn't grow up as your faith or whatever.
Right.
You didn't
or just family dynamics. You don't always, it's hard for when you're so focused on being, providing for your family. It's hard to have those moments of real, rawness and things like that. And so I can't wait to be able to have those moments that you're talking about with your kid. And even that, like when you talked about when he asked you if he still loves you, it's like that's like God. Like God, when we ask God, like, oh, like we feel like God is giving up on us. We feel like God doesn't love. God's like, what the heck? Like, I created you. Like, you're my child. Like, there's no way that I could stop loving you. But it's so hard in the moment.
People, I want to let people know, because the problem, a lot of people think they're miserable. God, they can never be forgiven, whatever they did. And maybe people in prison are watching us right now. Maybe people they're about to commit suicide. Right. So what a message you give to these people, they're about to give up on them. What would be the message you will give to someone right now? They're in desperate condition. They're like, if you can coach them, what would you say to them?
I would say that the message is the gospel. It's like when you really truly understand who God is and God's intentions, you know that all of your bad, all of your mess ups, all of your mistakes, all of your failures, all of your shame, all of your guiltiness that we all feel from day to day, everything that's happened in life. Life is difficult. Life is hard. Like life will beat you up, chew you up and spit you out. People will leave you. People will reject you. People will, damn you. People will do all these different things, but it's like, that's what God provided for. And so in all of our mess and all of our nakedness and all of our, just shame, to know who God is, God loves us. Like that's what the Bible teaches. That's what the gospel is that God loved us so much that he gave his only begotten son for us. And so it's like, we feel like we failed God. We feel like we're too far gone, but God is like, no, this is so exactly close. What I provided for. Like I provided for your shame. I provided for your guilt. I provided for your sin, a way out. And if we would just accept it, if we would accept that Jesus died on the cross for us and start to walk on that process with Christ.
This is so simple.
It really is, and we really do make it so hard.
And it don't come with rules and regulations. It don't come if you
just by yourself, or if you can get around somebody that believes and just say, God, reveal yourself to me. I believe that you died on that cross for my sins. I receive it. The Bible talks about, to them that believed, he gave them the right to be children of God. Wow. And so if I can just in all my mess, he who in Christ is a new creature. A new creation. I can start over. Everything that I've done wrong is wiped. It's done. But the world makes it difficult because the world doesn't want us to come into that revelation.
They want. One thing I really want to understand. For me, every time I see an athlete, I see. Maybe people see an idol, but I see a person, and I know all the struggle that we go through it, and I know people, they want to be idolized. Watching you being so outspoken about your faith, but so also at the same time, you're not just outspoken, you want to learn, because a lot of people say they're Christian, but they don't read, they don't look for it, they don't live Christianity. Today I see a lot of people preaching Christianity, but not living it. And I say in sport, right away if you're good or not, because you can have the height, you can have the move, but if you don't have the skills, that's called the effort. So, and that's something that I would like to, in your basketball journey, like going back for the beginning, when did you know, basketball is going to be my platform, basketball is going to be the place I will be able to communicate? And now you're
talking about communicating my faith?
Yeah.
Oh, well, so it wasn't that at first. So when I got into the league, I wasn't saved. I was living my life. I was doing my own thing. I grew up in church, and so I had an idea about God. I had a traditional mindset of like, okay, God is real, but I'm not necessarily listening to what he has to say. I'm not following him. I don't believe that there's a tangible relationship with Christ. It was just like, yeah, I'll go to church from time to time. If somebody asks me, I'm a Christian, but that's about it. It wasn't
not living.
Yeah, it wasn't until I really had that moment. And it's a story in the book about how I came to faith, and my pastor's a huge part of that. And just for me, it was learning about the fact that God loved me for me. And so I talked about when I was younger, struggling with anxiety. I went through a lot of things when I was younger about just self-acceptance and fitting in, and I developed that anxiety around just wanting to be loved. And so I always felt like I had to work for it. I have to be good to be loved. I have to do everything right to be loved. But it was learning about God's love for me, good or bad, just for Jonathan. That was the thing that was like, you know what, this is the God that I want. I want to follow Christ. I want to learn more about him. And, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the people that God put in my life to do that. But now that's when basketball for me went from just a sport that I love to play into a vehicle to be able
Totally.
to speak. Be able,
Everybody does.
Because people will listen to you, you know, when you have a platform. But for me, I try my best to be just authentic. Like when you go on somebody's Instagram, you get a peek into who they are.
So
it's
true.
like me, I can't be who I am if I'm not in some way, shape, or form talking about, you know, just what God has done for me. Not that I'm good or that I'm perfect, but that God has saved me.
You're doing, if they can do for you, what I like about, like, people don't understand the rap culture. The rap culture was worship leaders communicate what they're living on the hoods. So people don't know that. So I made a study about storytelling. The biggest storytelling shaping culture is the rappers. They literally be able to communicate what they're living in the suburbs, and they get the attention of the wealthy. And it's funny because every white Jewish kid, they want to become black rappers. Like, it's funny. And I remember I was washing the car, and they had this Jewish, very wealthy Mercedes. I'm washing the car, and the guy looked at me and said, "Victor, it's funny. They want to be rapper. They want to be black until they go to the hoods." And so it's funny. Like, and
There's probably some truth to that.
Yeah. So, and they are very well spoken, you know, about drugs, alcohol, sex, and they are literally, people are okay with that. But what really annoys me, when you start preaching the gospel, people get offended. And that's something that I'll be honest, because when they curse, it's in fighting, is the words F is almost like a normal word,
right,
you know, like
right.
They curse all the time. And when I start preaching the gospel, they start condemning you. I say, wait. You can curse the way you want. You can say whatever you want. You can talk about drugs, alcohol, drinking. And when we're talking about something that would change your life, you get offended by it. So you ever thought about that way?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, it's just how the world operates. It's like, you know, everyone is free to talk about what they want to talk about, except don't get on that subject. You know, don't talk about, you know, Christ. Don't talk about anything like that. But it's just our human nature. At the end of the day, we want what we want, and anything that pushes us outside of what we want is bad. And it's very easy to be tolerant of what you like than it is to be tolerant of what you don't like. And so for me, it's, you know, I try my best to be fair. Like, if you want me to be tolerant of your beliefs, you got to be tolerant of mine, and just try to have that even exchange. And there is, especially with the way that there's going, there has to be a level of unashamedness and boldness on our part to declare, you know, who we are, bravery and courage to say, yeah, I'm afraid in this moment to share my faith, but I'm going to. Yeah, I'm afraid to tell my friend that I don't want to go to that concert, but I'm going to, because at the end of the day, this is the only thing that I have to stand on. And what is it to gain the whole world and to lose your only soul? And so it's coming a time where it's harder and harder to share your faith, but it's only more necessary to do it, because the darker and darker it gets, the lighter and lighter we should be.
In the moment we live. And the reason I wanted to make a podcast is like, I want to tell stories.
Yeah.
And I'm going to interview people that I feel that the stories go with my beliefs, because sometimes people would take any guess. Oh, I want to get fame. I say, how can I empower people through my struggles, through your struggles? And we talk much more about the struggle, because one thing I'm advocating for is the only thing we have with the free will to make our choice. Mm-hmm. And today we have been deciding what to choose. So I want to share what I just read yesterday on the platform, on the social media platform. They had a 13-year-old girl being offered to have sex with a 31-year-old guy. Really? Yeah, Snapchat. Snapchat just had a 13-year-old. They just put it there. And of course, sometimes, the news is fake, or there is whatever. But I can tell social media today, the propaganda of bikinis, being sex, and pushing that thing. And I understand the women, whatever you want to do with your body, it's your body. But I mean, when you have kids, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, and they are in this social, in these elements, and you're talking about building the brands and purchasing this and that. My thing is, how can I help people protect their children? This for me is, I have the shirts. You guys have the shirts? I wanna give you the shirt. So My sister's been missing since 2004. I don't know if you know that.
Your sister?
Yeah, it's been missing since 2004.
No, I didn't
2
know
weeks before my fight, my title fight in UFC.
Really?
So they took her. They
I see.
her.
I see.
So this is called the knock on human traffic, and this I
Thank you.
You see, I give you both lives matter. I give you, so that is no discussion here. So, but for me is what it means. Like, how can we protect our children today? And I feel like sports design idols, like you an icon, like my kids, when they hear you, when, we have a friend that plays with you, that I really cherish so much, and he can fight.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, what I love about athletes, they become an icon, and you stand for your faith, you stand for your beliefs. So closing our interview, I know you have to go, but I mean, closing our interview, what advice would you give to a young person? I call it athlete because entrepreneurs are athletes. Everybody's an athlete. They look for performance. And what advice you give for the older generation, like the people that they're watching us right now? What advice you give the youngest and the oldest generation?
Yeah, the advice that I would give the youngest is that God truly does have a plan and a purpose for your life. And his plan is a good plan, and it's a great plan, and God has things for you, but you will never experience that plan until you get with God, and until you get out of the driver's seat of your own life and allow Christ or allow God to drive. You'll never come into who you were created to be. You can be a lot of things, you can do a lot of things, but you'll never experience the true fulfillment of your purpose and doing what you were created to do. And so, for young people, there's a lot of people speaking, there's a lot of people pushing you in one way or direction or another, but God truly does love you, and God truly does have a purpose for you. And the one thing that I've taken away from walking with God or trying my best to walk with God is that God was never trying to take anything away from me. He was trying to get something to me. Wow. And so when I look at my wife today,
let's stop that. So he's never trying to take anything away from me. He's trying to get something to me. And my representation of that is, when I was in the world, I was messing around with all the ladies, all the girls that I could get my hands on. But now I know that God wasn't trying to take that away from me because he was a bad God, or that, that I was a bad person. It was that he had something for me. And so now that when I look at my wife today and I look at the fact that I'm about to have a baby girl, it's like, God, that's what you were trying to get me to. And if I had continued to live the way that I was wanting to live, I would have never. Third wife, fourth wife, like many athletes have.
I would have never met her. She makes me a better person. And so, a lot of times we don't, it's like we don't know the good that God is. We don't know the good that God has for us until we truly try to experience it. There's a verse that says, taste and see that God is good. And so you have to try. You have to get tired of what you're doing and what you're living. There were so many times where I was in the club and then I get home and be like, this isn't me. This isn't me. It's not who I am. And so that would be my advice, to just seek God and let him lead you.
And what about, it's funny because I think the young generation will get that pretty sure, but the problem is the old generation. The guys, they're being the old path, maybe on the third marriage, maybe on the fourth marriage. It's funny because I was talking to my son and say, son, what type of athlete you want to become? And then I present him a bunch of athletes. I present them. I made a fool of athletes. Say, this guy is number one. You want to be like him? And I say, okay, this is the sport. He was number one in sport, but in his personal life, and I said, he had that. And then I say, can you name him? Can you be, if you want to choose, which one you want to become? And he said, I don't want to be him. So I say, how can you learn from him what he did right on the sport, but what he did wrong? And so I say, David, you're going to become, to my kids, you're going to become something, either you're big or small. But when you die, people are going to cherish for the things you achieved. But it's hard for the old people to get rid of that thing. It's funny, I'm trying to get my dad straight. He say, I want to become a Christian, but I just don't want to give the ladies. I say, Dad. And I say, stop. Don't. I just approach God without the lady, with the ladies. Bring the ladies to him.
Come on.
He would take it out. I promise you.
Yeah.
And I say, that thing doesn't work that hard anymore, So just don't worry about the ladies. So I was just having fun with him, and I said, just bring the ladies with you and let him and present them. See if he's gonna. But the older people, like the older generation.
You mean that are just like set in their ways? Like
yeah. So what advice you give to them? Because I know they hear maybe from us, we are the youngest, you young generation. Yeah. But I mean, I see so many knowledge and so much wisdom that you provide with action, not just words. You know, you're working your way out. But I mean, I feel like the younger generation has a voice, and you have a voice. And you have a platform, you have a blueprint. What would you say for these old generation athletes, entrepreneurs, wealthy people that they have their ways stuck in a way and they don't want to change? What do you say to them?
I would say that when you've been doing something for a long time, a lot of times it's hard for you to see or fathom that anything can be better or anything can change and truly be different. And so if you've been if he's been messing with the ladies for a really long time, to him, like that's all there is. But even to the point how I was talking about to the young people, he doesn't know what a truly God-fearing, God-loving woman, would bring to him, or how that would change his life, or how him getting to a certain place in God, how that would change him. And so there probably are the hardest people to change, but at some point in time, he won't be able to mess with the ladies forever. You know what I'm saying? And so at some point,
you're going to need some extra help. It's not going to work the same.
At some point in time, it gets old. At some point in time, but what you're trying to do is stop him before it becomes too late, right? Before it comes to, until it gets to that point where you can't turn back, you can't make new decisions. But you would just hope that they could see that there is more and that there is better. And what you're trying to do is model that to him right now, and you just keep knocking on the door, and maybe one day he'll answer. But for that older generation, it is tough.
It's tough. And it's funny because they ask me a question, say, I'm 46. So I fought 2 weeks ago. I'm going to show you the highlights pretty soon. But I mean, I still compete in a high level. And it's funny because a lot of people are avoiding me to compete me now. They don't want to. So these Paul brothers.
Oh, yeah?
They've been running away from me like a chicken. They don't want to do nothing to do with me.
That would be hilarious.
And they call my manager and say, we're not going to go. He's too powerful for us. I'm double his age.
That would be hilarious.
Give me the two brothers. But they don't want to do it. And I understand. They just want to go there and tease the world, like they're. So they're doing a business for themselves. But one thing is important. Like I was there and they asked me a question, what your secret for your longevity? And I got the mic. They're asking me on the UFC. I say, okay, you ready? It's just two things. I quit alcohol and I quit sugar. And I said, when I quit these two things, I got control of my life. Because the problem is like when you understand that you're addicted to these things. Since
sugar is deep. Sugar is a big one. Yeah.
It's so, but alcohol is full of sugar too, especially wine, especially, and they say, oh, but I drink heavy liquor. I say just to get buzz. So the problem is you either using this substance to create a pleasure, to create dopamine. So what I discovered, I went to the science of it. I said, okay, why people use weed, why people use alcohol, why people use this substance? It's just dopamine. It's just like when you have love, when you make love with your wife, it's totally dopamine. When you have your children, it's totally dopamine. When I'm gonna be with my son this whole week and he's competing a football tournament here. It's like, it's a dopamine. Like you it's hard to explain what you're going through. You're watching your wife pregnant and you just putting all the things. It's totally dopamine. So it's hard for people to give away of these things, to kind of quit. And I remember one day later, someone started texting me, man, you changed my life. What your speech changed my life. And when I can change the life of one person, like I said, like, I don't care. It was, and I remember someone booed me, woo, alcohol. And I say, I understand why. He was already buzzed with alcohol. And I respect people that drink. But give me power to say no. When I say no to things, I told my son, when you say no to a woman, because I choose one woman, David, but I say no to all of them. I not just say yes to one, I say no to all of them. When I choose to have a baby, when I choose to be a father, I say no to all the things they invite me to go. And I put him in paper since I'm say, Dad, you're not going to go to this trip to make this much money? I say, not. Because the tournament of your sister is more important. And I'm going to spend money. I'm going to go there and spend money on the hotel. And I'm saying no to making a lot of money to a trip. And I say, Dad, every time you say yes to something, you say no to others. So, and Jonathan, you don't understand that admiration that I have for you, because how old are you now?
25.
25. You're like, I have almost half of your age. And I feel like I'm 25, but I feel like you are 46, in a sense of,
I understand.
of wisdom.
I understand.
And I mean, my prayer is for you to keep pushing the envelope, because never in history, we need athletes, rappers. We need everybody to take a stand for something bigger. And you're taking a stand for Christ in the midst of this generation. And I know it's an offense for a lot of people, but I believe we are in the generation that we're going to need people like you, as when this thing gets tougher, because it's going to get worse. But I think I can only see a bright future. And my brother, it's such a joy to have you here.
I appreciate that, and thank you very much. And just again to everybody that's watching, like, everybody's on a journey. Everyone is trying to figure it out, and just that there's grace for you. Your ups, your downs, your mistakes, your good, your bad, and just there's grace for you in Christ. And you can go there, and you can run there, and you can be forgiven, and you can be encouraged and changed. And so yeah, like I believe that, even to your point about just like the people that are needed going forward, like if you don't know that we're in a war, then the war hasn't even really started yet for you. And so it's like we are in something that's very deep, that goes past the physical, that's spiritual, and we are going to need people to stand up and not just preach, but create things like Unitas that we're talking about, creating the sports and apparel company, create things like your podcast, create things like this, create things like what you're doing for the human trafficking. It's like if we're not active, if we're not vigilant, if we're not creating them, we'll always be a step behind.
So how people can, if you can share where people can know about your apparel company that's coming.
Yeah, so it's not out yet.
It's not yet.
So we're going to be launching it.
Where people can, your Instagram, Twitter.
Yeah, I would say just, type in Jonathan Isaac on Instagram, John Isaac _01. I'm on Twitter as well. And just be on the lookout. It's coming out this summer. I really think people are really going to like it.
Come on,
and what I love about it is that,
can you give a little pic, like a little, like.
Yeah, I don't want to put it out yet.
Just put a little taste on their mouth.
So what I love is that, most people, like, when you think of like a mission-driven apparel company or something like that, it's always like something that's just like tattooed. It's very cheesy. Like, not saying that Jesus loves you is cheesy, but most people wouldn't walk around with a Jesus loves you t-shirt. It's not culturally, relevant. It doesn't mean anything. But when you have something that is high quality, that's fashionable, and then you know what it stands for.
I like that.
You know what I'm saying? You know what it stands for. To me, that helps the young people want to wear it. That helps people feel younger when they wear it. That's what I'm going for, a way to impact the culture so more people can wear it, but then everyone knows what it stands for. And
with a story behind.
There's a story behind.
Wow.
Yeah.
My man, I'm all for it.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited.
On, for sure.
And I want to go to one of the games.
Yes, absolutely.
And I want to invite you to train. I want to train, hold pads for you. I
would love that.
I want to teach you guys, you and your friends.
Yeah.
You let me know. I come with my pads, and I'll be able. I know Williams, he's.
Yeah, for sure. We gonna figure it out, but definitely a game next season. I'm definitely gonna get you some merch so you can wear it and stuff.
100%.
And yeah.
I'm all for it. So, guys, thank you very much. I see you in the next episode. Keep pushing the envelope. Go big. Go strong. Jesus #1. No, Jesus is everything.
Come on.
That's awesome. Let's go.